Evening, folks, and welcome back to OnlyLeedsBros. As you can see, there's only one bro here tonight. Dylan is a little bit under the weather, so he is watching from home. No voice and stuff like that. So, Dillo, hope you're getting better and all is good. But we are joined by the voice of reason, as White Snake Bites does say, Ger Lynch from The View. Ger, thanks very much for popping on. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm not bad. That fucking name. Gonna go away pretty quick. The season doesn't pick up. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. As I was telling you there off air, everything's set up, ready to go. All the questions I want to ask you. So I'm out in the shed, ready to go. And obviously, as you know, Jer, it's absolutely freezing here. So my internet cable is frozen solid. I've no internet going to it. So everything last minute was picked up. So as you can see, I'm in my kitchen, not the usual Leeds bits and bobs around. I was trying to usher the wife and the kids out and locking the door and not make any noise and stuff like that. But anyway, we made it and we're here and just about on time as well. White Snake Bite says, how's our time management? I think it was all right. I think we're about a minute off. But we get into a couple of the comments first, yeah. So Danny says, smash a like and subscribe. Please do that, lads. The channel is starting to move forward. Thanks very much. And a great guest on tonight, of course. Should be a great stream treat on my favourite YouTubers.
Sean
They'll
needs to
all be
get his
happy to
glasses
see.
fixed again.
100%. Right, we'll get into it. Oh, Dillo actually is here on my live. I'm alive.
Oh, good.
My live
Good.
lads, but I'm a sick man. And yeah, he is raging that he's missing this one tonight. And love the merch. Yeah, Jerry, exactly. Do you want to tell the people about the merch? We do see it on there. Really, really nice stuff. I'm ordering mine
Yeah,
up
I'm flocking.
on Friday.
Yeah, we did a partnership with Back Four Clothing, who do stuff for Connor's channel on One Leeds as well, and they do some generic Leeds merch, and then they also do other clubs merch. But yeah, Gavin over there got in touch with him, and he sent me out a few bits and pieces. That's one of the different styles. There's 3 different styles, and then there's t-shirts and hoodies. He's got mugs there as well. But yeah, there's a link on my channel, and if anyone wants to support it, they can be doing that. But we couldn't use Leeds United The View because it's LUTV, and unfortunately, Leeds have already got LUTV locked down. So we went with the LU badge and then the view underneath to try and get it done. So yeah, slight change of logo, but it's good.
I love the retro mic as well. The nice how touch on
I
like
love
that.
it.
The
Yeah,
smiley. You
yeah.
can't go wrong when you slap that boy the smiley badge on something. You can't go far wrong, can you? You know. Right, Jer, we'll get into it. First things first. We're 26 games into the season, a little over halfway. 20 games to go. When you say it like that, not a lot of time. How do you evaluate Leeds United's season so far compared to your expectations at the start? Recruitment was decent enough to where we're at the minute.
I think you can look back at it at this point of the season with possibly a little bit of rose tinted glasses and just kind of look at it and say, top of the league, halfway through the table into the second half of the season. You'd want to come into the January window at least in contention, and we've come in top of the pile. So when you look at it, if someone showed you this league table at the start of the season, you would have bit their hand off for it. Like you would have gone, yeah, absolutely, no problem. That looks great. There's little things that we need to be careful of, I think, and be mindful of. I don't think we can ignore the slip ups that have happened, and I don't think we can just always blame a goalkeeper for them either. There's some other issues that we have to be careful of as well, and we can't rule out what's coming up behind us, because even though we've gone on a really good run in December and we've had some good games, and then the last 2 away games kind of, well, home and away, made us wobble a little bit. Sheffield United haven't gone away. You know, we thought that they would, and they had a big wobble. Sunderland were 7 or 8 points behind at one stage. They're now 3 points behind again. So we've gone from being in a situation where it was a 2, maybe 3 horse race coming into the new year to now being wide open again in a 4 horse race, which is not what we want for the second half of the season. We want to get away. But I think home form's been great. I think the options this year with Farke, with rotating players around, has been better. I will always question some of his decisions. I think square pegs and round holes bothers me. Always does, especially when you've got options. But I think if you look at the entirety of the first half of the season, you can't argue where Leeds are. And the only goal this year is to get out of this division at all costs, no matter what that looks like. And if he can replicate what he did in the first half of the season, if everybody else does the same, Leeds go up as champions, and that's great. There will be a hell of a lot of work that will need to be done in the summer, though, for that team to be competitive, looking at what the Premier League looks like right now with Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich. But the goal is to get there. I think so far, so good. And I think we should start to get better into the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm hoping the same as well. I think at the minute we're at that stage of the season. obviously it could always feel like it was a little bit better, and it's kind of whatever side of your mentality is, whether you're glass half full or glass half empty. And I find myself some days I'm glass half empty, and then the next day I'm glass half full. And I think we kind of have that as Leeds fans, and I think it is just the mental scars of everything that's gone before, the Leedsy that we do, the bottling all the time, and it is that kind of insecurity coming into it. And like what you say, you think a couple of weeks ago, especially over the Christmas period, Sunderland are well over it, and we kind of expected them to fall off. They did, but they've pulled their way back into it as well. They're obviously getting a few in as well. I think just talks to Louis Barry going there as well. You'd know more on that year. You see Sheffield United making moves, Burnley making a couple of moves as well, whether we agree with Ashley Barnes going there. I've seen a couple of people going online with this, and like that's something like that can come back and bite you in the arse as well. So I think that's probably where a little bit of disgruntlement is coming from the Leeds fans as well, that we see everyone else around us making moves and, trying to bluster their squad. And then you just Leeds are in the corner and it's like poking them with a stick. Like, just, come on. Just do something. But we'll get a little bit further into the January transfer window a bit further on. But what I do want to actually, you did mention him there, Daniel Farke this season. He's came in for his fair share of criticism, rightly or wrongly. Especially the form. I think at Ellen Road, I think we'd all agree he's done a job there, especially the last 10 games. 9 wins, 1 draw. It ain't a bad return. Away from home is probably a different situation, but Daniel Farke, he's definitely got his fair share of criticism. Where do you sit on the fence with Daniel Farke? Do you think he has to take half of the blame, or is it solely on the players that he puts them out a game plan and it's up to them to execute it?
I think ultimately it's always the manager that gets the blame. That's the reality of it. You can blame players, you can dance around it, you can blame owners, you can blame players, you can blame anybody else that you want. But it comes down to the manager putting the 11 on the pitch, the manager working with that 11. And, if someone is consistently letting him down and he continues to play him, well, then he's partly responsible because he keeps putting that person in the firing line, or if he's making a mistake with the shape and that's costing you, then unfortunately it goes back to, yes, the players might not be executing it well, but ultimately you continue to do the same thing. So there's things that we know we'll get with Daniel Farke. We know it's a pragmatic style of football. We know it's possession based. It's not necessarily possession with purpose. But it works more often than it doesn't. And he has a formula, and he's a very German man with a very German style in terms of, this is the structure, this is the formula. I've seen it work. We do it again. Copy, paste, copy, paste. Mm-hmm. So he knows what he's doing. And I think that's where there's possibly a little bit more swagger that he has about himself than some of the fans have right now. Because when he sits down and does his press conferences, he's very comfortable and very confident about making, for me, sometimes contradictory statements. But he can do that because his track record says, I'll get you promoted. And that's how he'll be viewed. So everything will be looked back on and going, if Leeds go up this season, he can look back and go, yeah, it was all under control. I knew exactly what I was doing. The problem is if we don't go up. But I think he needs to look at the away structure a little bit differently. I think possibly looking at the links of players that we are being linked with. Maybe there's a possibility of him looking to go 3 at the back. That's possibly looks like he might change the system, although most managers don't change the system. But he's got some really big calls that he has to make on the turn of the corner now. Like, once we get Harrogate out of the way, what does he do with Sheffield Wednesday? And that can dictate what's going to happen afterwards. So he has big decisions to make. I sometimes feel he sits on the fence when it comes to making big calls, and I think he leans too much on his favourites. And I think he's got them. Every manager has them. Yeah, it's not a criticism, but I think at times he tries to squeeze Ethan Ampadu in somewhere just to have him in there, and I don't. And
it feels like there's no need for it, Ger, doesn't it? It feels like, especially when Bogan and Boyum got injured, and it felt like there was no need for that day, especially when you have, like what you say, a round peg and a round hole in Isaac Smith. And we'll kind of get your thoughts on that a little bit further, but it feels like the obvious thing is there to do it. And it was a little bit kind of like last season with the Rutter and Pirro situation. We're all as Leeds fans saying, just swap them. And I was like, no. And it feels like at times with Farke, when he's been told to do something by the majority of the fan base or the media are putting across him, it's like he's so stubborn to do it, like, no, I don't want to do it. And then when it kind of wears off and people kind of forget about it, well, then he'll change it. And that's what we've seen towards the end of the season. And it's like what you said, there's times like I think we are a better side with Ampadu, especially away from home. We've seen it against Stoke and Derby, how good he is in that middle of the park. But I do feel at times that he's forcing Ampadu on the pitch too much, especially that right back position that day. There was no need for it. And I think he came out in the conference and said, I didn't bring Smith on because I was looking to go to a back 3. I don't know what your thoughts about, Ger, unless I was wearing tinted glasses. I didn't see Leeds in a back 3. It was very much a 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we lost some attacking power. Myself and Lockie looked at it. Lockie was of the opinion it's a back 3, but it's because Verber goes so far forward and the defense is squeezed across. But for me, it's a very, very right-sided 3 if it's a 3 because Ethan Ampadu is on the touchline for a lot of the second half. Yeah. And where we were getting joy in the first half, going around the outside and overlapping and giving Dan James that overlap and run, which creates space usually for the pass in behind, that was gone. All of a sudden, that avenue was switched off by a decision that didn't benefit the team. And what Farke had said before about the Schmidt-Ampadu conversation there was Schmidt gives him more from an attacking perspective, but he uses Ampadu if he needs it the more defensive. That was a game he didn't need the more defensive one, but he went with it anyway. And then you look at, again, Pascal Struijk comes out with a team injured. Yes, Ampadu played there last season, but he hasn't played there this year. And you put him back there, who was a centre midfielder. You put a left centre back, left back, and you take the left back and you put him on the bench. So for no reason outside of just personal preference, you put 2 square pegs in round holes when you've got the exact players to play in it right there. Just play Verber in the centre back position, play Schmidt at the left back position. And if you want to play Ampadu as a holding midfielder away from home, which again, as you said, he's been excellent in there, so I completely agree with that, then be big enough to take Tanaka or Rothwell out and put him in there and go, right, that's the shape of the away games because it works. When we're at home, we'll go more attacking, we bring Rothwell back in and we'll see what we can do. But his comment around having to have his captain on the pitch, I don't think carries a huge amount of weight because you've got 2 vice captains there who've been doing fine all season, getting us to where we've gotten to already without Ethan Ampadu. And I think let him have his moment to come back into the team. No other player gets rushed back into the side as quick as Ampadu has been. They all have to sit on that bench and wait. Look at Largi Ramazani. He's been sitting there for ages. Schmidt's been sitting there waiting for both fullbacks to get injured or suspended. Then they do, and he finds the centre mid and he's taking his place, and he's like, "What have I got to do here?" So, just situations like that. But I think if he wins a game, he gets away with it. Never has to answer that question. But when the game slips away from you, the immediate criticism will be, "Well, why did you do that?" And that's
it's always going to be the opposite.
And it's possibly unfair, but it's the obvious thing to say.
It is, and it feels like at times, and again, like talking about Ampadu, when he is his captain, and he obviously was a big miss when he's out and he's back in now. But it feels like to get Ampadu on the team, he's not just moving one player out. It's not just like for like. He's moving 3 or 4 positions around to try and squeeze him out, and that doesn't always work as good. Like Ger, like you have been a coach as well in the past, and you obviously from when you're training with players, who's the better player, and he can do this and he can do that. Have you ever been that reliant on a player or a captain to turn around and go, "Well, I need to change 4 or 5 players around in my squad just to get this one player in"? Like, it's something that we don't usually see.
It depends on how you view your captain or what you want your captain's role to be. My decision making and picking a captain was either I'd give it to a younger player if I wanted them to step up a bit. So if I thought there was more in them and they weren't producing it, I'd give them responsibility and say, "Well, now it's your job to carry out the actions that I want on the park." So if you're not talking, if I want to just elevate you a bit, or you go with an experienced player who will control the game for you and will carry out your instructions. So when you're not on the park, save you screaming like a crazy person on the sideline, which I'm very guilty of most of the time when I'm on the sideline. To save you from that person's on the pitch to make sure everyone knows this is the game plan. This is where we're supposed to be. You know the role, and you don't accept anything less than the standards you've set. But you don't necessarily always need your captain on the pitch to do that. And I think if you're that reliant on one person, there's possibly a bigger issue in terms of players motivating themselves. And he talks about it being a young squad. It's the 7th youngest squad in the division. They're not kids anymore. The whole City game, I think the youngest person on the park was 24. So it's not that young.
Not that young, yeah.
And there was other experience on that bench. Josh Gilavogi is there. Carl Darlow was there. There's other experience there that you chose, Pat Bamford, that you choose not to use. So, you can't really have it both ways. You can't make a comment about a lack of experience when you sit your experience on the bench every single week.
It doesn't back it up. Yeah.
So what is it? Is it the team is too young and needs experience, or do you need better players because the experienced players you have aren't good enough because they're right there? I think he said in the last game that missing Gruev and Bamford was a big reason why we dropped points against Hull. And you're like, Bamford's been on the bench for weeks and you haven't played him, and Gruev's been injured since the start of the season. He hasn't been here. How does that one make sense?
And what do you think, Ger, that holds on players? Because obviously, again, you've been a coach and I've been a player. And I think with something like that, if I'm one of the players, I'm one of the fit players, and I'm getting my opportunity, and you hear him saying that in the press conference, especially when you're playing in them positions, surely there has to have some sort of kickback in the dressing room. Again, he probably has control and you don't say it, but surely psychologically somewhere the players that do fill in them positions, especially the likes of Rothwell, who I think has been brilliant since he came in, last couple of games a little bit off it, but overall I think he's done really, really good. Surely that has to have some psychological effect on them when he's saying stuff like that, especially like Ampadu saying, I think it was one of his press conference where he said he's the most important player. Like some of the stuff that he comes out with, you are a little bit kind of like, you shouldn't be saying. If you think it, maybe just don't say stuff like that. Maybe just keep that one to yourself.
I think that with most managers, but I think Daniel Farke at sometimes volunteers things that he doesn't need to
Yeah.
say. And I think they're usually bits that someone will come back to. It's usually bits that I pick up of, when he goes on to a lengthy kind of answer and I'm sitting down with my head down making notes about what he's saying. And next thing he'll just say something, you'll kind of go, what?
Yeah.
Like, why would you say that? Why would you volunteer that piece of information? It was like the marquee signing. Oh, sorry, like the marquee signing. That question comes out of nowhere, and he's like, "Oh no, I can't rule that out." Well, now we're all going to ask you about who we're signing in January, but you keep telling us it's a quiet
You
window.
keep
But
telling
you
it's
said
going to
you
be a
won't
quick
rule out a
window.
marquee signing,
And then
so
also turn around saying we're not to finish article either after the whole game. So we're not to finish article,
but a
but we're
quiet January.
expecting a
What
quiet
is it?
window. So you're
Does the
not really
team
getting
need more?
fans on. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Dan. Yeah, but that's the bit that I go. I don't have a problem with you necessarily why you said it, but you didn't need to say it at all. And you probably would have avoided the conversations that happened afterwards had you not said that. Like if somebody said to you, Daniel, can you rule out a marquee signing in January? And you go, I'm not talking about transfers. End of story. Shut it down. Don't need to get into it. The other comment then about the squad, like, is it the finished squad? No. Well, then you shouldn't be having a quiet
Well, you tell us it's
January.
a quiet
So
window. Yeah.
so if it's going to be a quiet January, then you're accepting the fact that this squad isn't finished.
Yeah. It isn't good enough.
So
And then, but is he essentially using it then as an excuse if thing does go Pete well, I said it in this interview that it wasn't the finished article, and then somewhat the board is to blame. Do you think he's maybe playing that little game that he knows obviously the 49ers are listening to these interviews? He's obviously saying it's not the finished article. Do you think that gives him a little bit more power than when he does approach go, I want X player? Do you think maybe that's why he's doing it publicly?
it's a very dangerous game to play. You're playing
That's
career roulette with that one. If it goes wrong, you lose your job. There's only so much. I mean, he was very vocal in the summer about what he wanted and very, very vocal about the number 10 in the last week. And that might have caused a couple of, ruffled feathers behind the scene. And you might have been told at that point, step back into your box a little bit. It's always a dangerous game to play for a manager to say out loud what he wants if he's been told behind the scenes to keep it down, not give away a strategy. But he's made two comments. He's answered two questions that would suggest Leeds will do something in January, which is, can you rule out a marquee signing? No. Daniel, do you need to sell players to bring anyone in? No. If we want to bring anybody in, we've got funds available. Okay, so there's funds available and you won't rule out a marquee signing. So now we're going to ask you questions every week about players. Yeah. Even though you keep telling us it's a quiet window, because those two things were said. If you don't answer those questions, or you say we're not discussing transfers till the window is closed, all that goes away. And then there's no noise around it. And he can stick to it. It's going to be a quiet January, and everyone goes, right, fine.
And it's dampening the expectation then, because now saying a marquee signing, naturally you're going to get all of us up going, well, who do you think about? Who are you looking at? You start getting more and more rumours and things. Obviously, we know what social media is like with lazy links and stuff, and that when it leads on to you, then when you have to report it. So yeah, I think he is kind of, I'm not sure what type of game is he playing. Is it to try and kind of push the 49ers a little bit more that, this isn't the finished article, and we will get on a little bit more exactly what you think we need. But yeah, as what you said, I think it's probably a dangerous game to be playing if he is thinking about it that way. And right, well, probably pre-Harrogate or maybe post-Harrogate, he is going to get asked the question again, where are we with transfers? And he probably will turn around and go, I expect a quiet window. I was like, well, you said on the last one, I can't rule out a marquee signing. So, and right, well, it's coming up. So yeah, it's all these games, I suppose, that he preempts, isn't it? I want to ask you about one, Ger, that's obviously been a big topic of conversation across social media, and I think all the bashing should be done, but I think there has to be like a real conversation now about Illan Meslier. And again, I think this is where your coaching experience comes into it, whether it's a goalkeeper or a player. You see a player like him struggling, the weight of the world on his shoulders. What do you do in this situation with Illan Meslier if Ger Lynch is the coach?
Well, you have two things you can do. You take him out of the firing line and protect him, or you back him. And you double down on him playing. And Farke did it against Sunderland. He didn't drop him after that mistake. And a couple of, I don't think he's made all of the mistakes everyone says he's made. I mean, a couple of the shots he could probably do a bit better at, but I don't necessarily just go, that's his fault. But the high profile ones, I think Farke will have a big decision to make of going, okay, the right thing to do is to take him out of the firing line because he's a young keeper. He's still 24 years of age. He's still a young man. And there's the mental health side of this as well. And he's getting absolutely battered from all sides. And I've always been happy to criticize performances, but leave it at performance and not get personal with the because they're a person. And I hate that. But I think he has to really look at protecting the individual now and taking him out of the firing line. The other side is the expectation from the fans is we get promoted, and he can't sit on someone's shoulders if they can't handle that kind of pressure. So he needs to make a decision about what he does in that goalkeeping position, whether it's Darlow, who's played at the top end of the Championship, played in the Premier League, would need a run of games to get up to speed still. Or he could do what he did against Sunderland, and he could say, no, that's my number one. Mistakes happen. We roll on. I still think he's my number one, which would be a strange thing to do, I think. I think the game coming up at the weekend does him a massive favour. I think Darlow automatically plays against Harrogate to get some game time. If that goes better than Salford last year, then maybe you can go, well, Wednesday, and you kind of avoid the conversation completely. I don't see them bringing a keeper in January, but I do see them changing it in the summer.
Yeah, we agree as well. And I was speaking the other night on our, I think it was a match reaction with Joe Blackburn, and no, it was Joe Blackburn's live that he did the other day, and I was in the chat, and we were obviously having the talk about the goalkeeping situation, and I just said, Joe, because you just imagine, because you know, your mind gets going, we start Darlow against Harrogate, and he makes a howler. Can you imagine the meltdown from this fan base? Is like, where do we go now? Yeah, the explosion would be mental, but then you could get the other side where Darlow has a fantastic game, you know, really good distribution, pulls off a nice couple of saves, and you'll have everyone going, that's brilliant. But then you'll have another section of the fan base going, well, it's only against Harrogate, so it's always going to be one of them situations where you're not really going to win with it. But the Meslier one, I've kind of said it from the start of the season. I think he probably should have went in the summer. I think his time was up. I do still think there is a keeper in there, but probably not at Leeds. It's just his decline from that keeper that we've seen in his debut against Arsenal under Bielsa, that 9th place finish, the relegation season when Big Sam took him out, did even the Championship last season. He's gradually regressed, and I think that's a real problem for him and a real problem for the club. And they say we keep Meslier on because he's an asset and we could sell him on as an asset, but he's not really doing his price tag great by the way he's playing at the minute. So there's protecting an asset and there's devaluing an asset at the same time, isn't it? So it's a very, very fine line that Leeds are playing, man. Like what you said, it's a massive decision for Daniel Farke going forward, isn't it? Especially for that Wednesday game. I think Harrogate, like what you said, it's you can kind of pour a bit of water over it. It doesn't really, because we all probably know it's going to be Darlow or Cairns, more than likely Darlow. But it's that Sheffield Wednesday one, isn't it, where Farke has the big call, and you know, if Meslier's in, it's basically telling us we need to back him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's if he starts him against Sheffield Wednesday, he's saying this is the keeper. Get on with it. But everything that everyone has said over the course of the last week all stands true. The first ball he comes to catch, if he catches it, he's going to have ironic cheers. If he misses it, there's going to be a meltdown. He's going to get booed. And that doesn't work. So, you know, that's the problem. But yeah, except the problem with Peacock Farrell was any shot from distance beat him. He was very good up close, where Melly is the other way around. Yeah, I think the protecting your assets a tricky thing as well, because he was probably worth 15 million in the summer. He's probably worth 6 now, to be honest.
He's gradually dropping,
yeah. And I do agree that he has regressed, and I do believe there's still a very good goalkeeper in there. But again, I've heard Squareball say it this week as well, and I agree with them as well. I think it's just probably not here anymore. I think the pressure is too much, and sometimes it has been said lots. Sometimes the jersey's too big. Look at Marco Silvestri here when he was here during a really bad time in goal for Leeds. He went off and had a fantastic career in Serie A in Italy, you know, afterwards, and was seen as a very good goalkeeper. So sometimes it's just too big a responsibility or too big a pressure for a player. And for such a young player, I think Dan Moylan might have said it on Square Ball, he's discovered fear. And I thought that was the best thing I've heard of when he came in, he was like, you know, yeah, I can do this, young cocky kid, I've got this. And then a couple of cracks and a few 100 goals going past you, and all of a sudden you're like, maybe I'm not all of that. So I think that's actually a really good point that Dan made as well. But yeah, I think you probably have to look to move him on. There is interest in France in the keeper. There will be clubs that will want him, even if it's as a backup. But I think you're probably losing money on him in terms of what the valuation was in the summer. Whatever we sell him, we'll still make a profit on him anyway at this stage. But it's probably not as big as it was. But I think Leeds need an experienced goalkeeper in nets. Especially this season and next season, to get you over the line, you need someone that can handle the pressure and knows what it's like. It's such an important position. A goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's usually a goal. So it's such a massive position to get right. And then when you go into the Premier League, you need someone that can keep your back four calm, speak to them, you know, and make big saves when you need them to be made. So next year I'd look at Ramsdale, but I know he hasn't got the footwork that people want, but I think he's a cracking goalkeeper. This year it's going to be so hard to bring anybody in January that make a difference. And it's a massive gamble to do it as well, because it might go wrong. And if it goes wrong, I don't think Farke is in a win-win situation here. I think the only thing he can do is holding position, and that's Carl Darlow and hope.
hope it's all right. Because it's hard. Like, I know you kind of got thinking about it, like both sides of the situation. What would the repercussions be if he goes with Darlow, or if he goes with? Because I think if he goes with Darlow and like that, everyone's kind of saying, well, probably the two of them at their peak. Meslier is definitely the better goalkeeper, but at the minute Meslier is down here, so Darlow has to be a little bit better. But then it comes to a situation, especially if he does back Darlow and the January window closes, and then he has a couple of clangers, February, March, and then we're in the same situation where it's like, I'll put Meslier back in. It's one of them positions, Jared. It's not just like swapping your left back, isn't it? You're a goalkeeper. You can't just be rotating them week in, week out, especially because, as you said, for that back line to organise. So it's a massive call for them coming up. And then I think if he backs Meslier to the hilt, am I confident that Meslier is going to go from January to the end of May without making another howler? And even if it's not, it's, a Sunderland one or the one against Hull, even if it's just, another shot straight at him and, he gets a hand when it goes in, he's still going to get pelters. And like what you said, if he ball comes in, he drops it, it's going to be, and it's a very, very fine line. But ultimately, that's what Daniel Farke is there for, isn't it? To make the big calls.
Yeah, and that's again comes back to the first question, the first point when we started was, ultimately, it'll be his responsibility and it'll be on his head. If he puts Illan Meslier back into the team and Meslier makes mistakes, then he made that call. If he takes Meslier out of 49, puts Carl Darlow in, and Darlow makes mistakes, he made that call. If they make a decision not go after a goalkeeper, if he's happy with what he has, and then, as you say, if the window closes and then mistakes start happening from Darlow, that's on him as well, because he didn't make a move in January, and you can't skip the manager. He's called the manager. He's not the head coach. He made that very, very clear.
Yeah,
he's involved in the process. So if there's conversations going around in recruitment, he's in the room. He's involved in that recruitment conversation. So we can't skip him and go, well, the owners bought these players or the owners didn't buy a goalkeeper. He's part of that process as well. So it's up to him to bring in what he wants as well. But it's such a massive, massive call. Darlow had one game for Leeds last season against Salford, and a ball went through his hands from a penalty. And the pelters he got for just throwing him. I mean, that's all you do with a penalty. You just throw yourself and hope you save it.
Troy, yeah.
Ball goes through his hands and he's the worst goalkeeper in the world. You're not supposed to save. The XG on a penalty is 1. You're not supposed to save it,
Well, even Mellier's one at, what was it, Joe? Was it?
Oh, we're in the season where he went...
Norwich, wasn't it? The Norwich one where he essentially dived all over it and he got pelters as well. But like what you said, penalties, you look at it and say he could have been in, but at the end of the day, it's 12 yards out and it's a ball being smashed at you. Yeah, it's very, very hard. Like what you said, it's a percentage. So I don't see any harm.
And he's got a lot of praise this year for his performances for the Welsh national side. So the games that we've seen him this year have all been come back with good reports on how he's played. So that's the most recent set of games, and he knows Rodon and he knows Ampadu from playing with him at Wales as well. So there's already easy partnerships built up there, and then he'll obviously know them really well from off the field with Leeds and working with them. But he should be able to organise that defence pretty well. So I mean, lesser of two evils. It'll be a bit more basic goalkeeping, but it might be a bit safer. But he will. Darlow makes mistakes as well, has in his whole career, which is why he's still floating around the championship. So. Yeah, there isn't a goalkeeper in the championship that hasn't got a mistake in them. It's just who has the least
good enough, they wouldn't be here. But Mikey made a good point from Imagine Not Being Leeds on our show, Jerry, the final point, and it's something that I can't really get away from. Leeds don't really tend, 9 times out of 10, we don't really tend to concede a lot of shots on us anyway. It's not like we're bombarded on goal. So with Meslier, it is just the basics of goalkeeping, isn't it? It's catching the ball, throwing it, your distribution, tipping the ball over the bar when you're not too sure about it. So it's not like you're asking them to be, you're facing 25 shots a game to try and stop. Literally, he's probably going to say 7 to 10 shots maybe a game at him. Like, you're really just asking for the basics. And once Darlow can do the basics better than what Meslier is doing, it looks like the obvious one, doesn't it?
Mez got a 66% save percentage from facing the fewest amount of shots in the league this season, where Trafford has a 78% save or 80-something% save percentage. Burnley have conceded 9 goals all season. He's faced more shots and he's made more saves. He made much bigger saves. So your goalkeeper will win you or lose you a couple of points along the way. And Meslier has big moments in him. Like last season, he made mistakes, but then he redeems himself with 2 games against Leicester. He makes massive saves. The game against Norwich where he makes the one-on-one save against Josh Sargent. So he had big moments that kind of leveled out some of the mistakes. But this year it's been far more weighted towards the, balls going in too easily, shots being hit that you should be doing better with that. If you get 2 hands to a ball, it shouldn't be going in the back of the net, but they are, and that's the problem. So, look, Farke will live or die by this decision. That'll be the ultimate thing here. But
that's because it feels massive, doesn't it? This feels like, again, it sounds, way over the top, but like this is literally what promotion hinges on, is decisions like this that we probably will look back on in May and go, well, he should have done this, or he should have done that, or he should have backed Meslier. And it's going to be this, isn't it, towards the end of the season? So like what you say, he has to live and die on that hill now, doesn't he? Whatever he's going to decide to go with.
Look at the reactions of the players. Joe Rodon wants to be a Premier League player, not a Championship player. You saw his reaction to it. The bigger one was the more subtle reaction. Was Joe Rothwell's one, was the one that, because he just rolled his eyes and threw his head in the air, like, not again. There was a defeatist kind of look about Joe Rothwell's reaction of like, here we go. And that to me said confidence is gone. Like, the players don't have the confidence. But they all want to play Premier League football. Joe Rothwell wants to be promoted again, wants to get another promotion or league winners medal if he can. Some of these players are on 60% wage cuts because they're out of the Premier League and they want to go back and get their full percentage of their wages back. So their futures are on the line with this as well. And the players that want to stay with Leeds and progress with Leeds might not be able to. If Leeds don't get promoted, they might have to be sold. And Leeds parachute payments get halved again at the end of this season. And if we don't go up, it's a fire sale because we're restricted with PSR what the owners can put into the club. You'll have to lower your wage bill again. We have the highest wage bill in the division. That'll have to be hacked in half. And you'll have to sell some players. And there'll be interesting players as well. So it's such a huge season from that perspective that if the 49ers ever want to get into the Premier League and have a run at what they think they can do with the club, it's now or never. And that I think is where all the pressure is coming and all the negativity sometimes comes out as well of you're top of the league, but you're not happy with the style of football because the destination is shit and it has been every time we've got there. So I want to enjoy the journey a little bit, but the journey's not been overly fun either right now. So when's this going to get fun? So I think there's a lot of pressure.
I said the exact same as well on that Bielsa season. Obviously, we know what happened with Derby, but remember the following season when against Bristol, Pablo scored that goal, and I was adamant to enjoy it a little bit more, not be hung up, on results or letting it pull down, to actually just enjoy the football. And I really, really did that season. But then towards the end, when you see that shaky moment and COVID and blah, blah, I didn't really enjoy it. But I was determined this season, after what happened last season, I said, let's just enjoy the ride. Let's actually look back in games and say, look, that was a good goal, that was a good result and stuff like that. But it is hard in situations like this because that Leeds feeling comes over you, doesn't it? Are we going to bottle it again? And even a couple of weeks ago when we were flying it, we were doing great. You've everyone at work turning around saying, geez, like Leeds are doing great. But I had a couple of Man United fans coming to me today. They're starting to bottle it now. They're starting to get a bit ropey. And it's all them little comments where it makes you start thinking, no, we're not. But then it's just in the back of your head. Are we doing the Leeds again? Are we starting to throw it away? But it is. Look, I still do think we definitely have enough quality in the squad. There is a question here, Ger, that I do want to put you. It's from Imagine Not Being Late. In your opinion, has the goalkeeper now become the weakest link in the squad?
Yeah, because I think the team is losing confidence in him. And if the defense loses confidence in the goalkeeper and they can't trust him, then that changes how they play. There'll be a hesitation to pass the ball back to him under pressure, and that'll cause mistakes. There'll be shape issues when they're looking for the ball from him. They won't trust his pass and they'll get too close to him. There's a lot of knock-ons. Corner kicks, they'll overcompensate. You might see somebody drag somebody down in the box because they don't want them to get one-on-one with the goalkeeper, So there's a lot of things. And then you get into other, and I've been interested in arguments with people as well when the goalkeeper's been at fault for stuff. But you get down to things of like, well, I had to bring him down because he was going to fuck it up anyway. So
yeah,
I had to bring him down. And then it's just a worse environment to be in. So I think, yeah, it is from that perspective, because I think if you look around the rest of the pitch, the players pretty much trust the players that are there. I think it's a really good team. The rotational options we have are very, very good as well. Might not have the individual class that we had last year. We've definitely got a very good quality position to position, but there's just that question mark around the goalkeeping position right now. And I think if Meslier is not having problems, if he's having a cracking season, we're talking about what's going on up front, so there would be another area to focus on, but that's the glaring one right now.
That's the glaring one at the minute. Yeah, I agree. That moves us on to the January transfer window. It is open and looked at. It is kind of silly season. We're being linked with everyone and everything you see online. Look at your famous saying is take everything with a pinch of salt. What would you like to see Leeds go out and do versus what you think will actually do?
I'd like to see Leeds do 3, but they won't. But I'd like to see them do a goalkeeper. I'd like to see them do a centre back, and I'd like to see them do either a 9 or a 10. So a different profile 9 than we've currently got. So somebody a bit more physical, big, powerhouse kind of striker to hold the ball up, balls into the box. So when we can't get around somebody, we can put balls into the box and cause problems. That kind of profile. Or if you can't get that, just getting another option for Brendan Aronson, because I think Farke is going to flog Brendan Aronson until his legs fall off. And that might become a problem later on in the season, because he did it with Georgie last year, and towards the end of the season, Georgie's legs started to go at the wrong time. So, yeah, you'd like to see that done. I don't think they'll do that. I think they might do a 10 if Farke still wants one. And there's so much noise around the centre back. Even if it's not the players that are being linked, it leads me to think that there's possibly that they're looking at either a centre back for this window or definitely planning for the summer, because Nico Elvedi from Gladbach, that's been mentioned, to me screams Premier League signing and looks like a summer move, but it'd be a tough gig to convince him. Bamidele, you and me know him from playing for Ireland, and he's been very good when he's played for Ireland. Very good at right back, very good at right centre back. Would be a very smart sign to bring in on loan, because Farke knows him. I gave him his debut.
He likes them positions as well, Joe, doesn't he? He always likes Theo. He always likes, if he's looking at a profile of defender. Yeah, he likes that thought, doesn't he, that someone can kind of cover that side. So it's definitely a Farke profile of a player, isn't it?
It's where's the gaps. And I think at the moment, if he looks at his back line, he thinks he's got Ethan Ampadu who can cover stroke, but he's definitely got Max Ferber who can cover stroke. He's got Schmidt who could possibly cover either the two fullbacks. Same with Sam Byram, so he's got plenty of options there. But he's only got James De Bio as a right centre back option for Joe Rodon if he gets injured, and he's so important to this team. So if he goes out, he has to put a left footer in the right hand side, which isn't a massive problem. Like, they can usually play there anyway, but it just puts somebody slightly off where they normally like to play. So having somebody in there as cover, Bamidele would bring experience. He would also bypass having to sit on the bench for 3 months until Daniel Farke decides to trust you. He would bypass that because he knows him. They've played, he had him before, gave him his debut at Norwich, knows his character, so he could nearly come straight in. And it's, if the move is to be believed, it's a loan with a view to a buy. So you kick the transfer fee down till after June 30th PSR deadline, and then you're into next year and you're fine. But I think they'll do something there. What level, I don't know. I think it might depend on what happens with Verber, because if Gladbach want Elvedi, if Leeds want Elvedi, if I was Gladbach, I'd be saying, give me Verber.
Bet your bottom dollar,
yeah. And then we're okay. There's not a lot of talk about number 10s, but that could mean Leeds are very actively looking at 10s, because it's really quiet around 10s. But I don't see us doing a huge amount, and it worries me because we don't ever appear to have learned from the lessons of the past. The only lesson we've taken out of the January transfer window is it's a bad time to buy players. It's an expensive time to buy players. That seems to be the only rhetoric you hear. But
then you see everyone else do it, then, don't you? And that's what frustrates, because you see everyone else doing it.
Well, Sheffield United are bringing Chowdhury in. They're bringing in Ben Britton Diaz. That's two decent players.
That's a solid sign in that, isn't it?
Burnley, people can say Ashley Barnes is a nothing signing. Ashley Barnes will score goals against the smaller sides down the bottom of the league and will come on the pitch and annoy defenders when they need him to come on.
Nuisance.
He's useful in areas, and he gives them another option if they need it. And they brought in a right back as cover for Connor Roberts. So they were their two problem areas. They're filled. So they've gone and addressed the problem areas straight away and got it done. Sheffield United's takeover has gone through now, so there's money there. They're going to start spending. And Sunderland are looking at players. Louis Barry's been mentioned, would possibly go into there, or Derby, possibly, wherever he's going to get minutes. But they've got the Jack Clark money burning a hole in their pocket from the summer that wasn't spent. So they're going to move. And again, because results have gone the way they've gone over the last couple of weeks, they've gone from being out of the automatic promotion race to being right back in it now. And if they were to ever have a crack at getting back into the Premier League, why not go now? Why not do it right now and go for it? So it's not just what we do, it's what everybody else does as well. I think this team is still good enough for this division. I think it needs a lot more players just because of the gap between being safe in the Premier League and top of the Championship. But I think they will be smart to make sure that they don't leave themselves without a number 10 because Aronson picks up a hamstring injury or is just absolutely shattered by the end of the season, and get another right centre back in case Joe Rodon gets a suspension or an injury, because you don't have cover there either. Get those two sorted, and I think you've got cover. I get this screaming and demanding a goalkeeper. I get all of that. I just don't think Leeds will do it, because it
doesn't seem like it's going to be top.
It's not a priority. I don't think they see it as a priority, because they brought Carl Darlow in to be the number one last year, and then Meslier decided to stay. And that's when Meslier became the number one again. But they've got goalkeepers, and Darlow is a decent level of goalkeeper. He's international, for God's sake, so he has to be of some quality. And up front, they've got the board. If I was in the board and Farke knocked on my door and said I want number 9, I'd say, you've got 3, Daniel. And we spent 10 million on one for you. Go make it work. You're the manager. Go make it work. It's your job to make them fit. Go do that. So I don't think they'll do a 9 for that reason as well. But I would get those two. Get the backup centre back and another option at 10, and I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I agree. This one here that I did want to ask you as well. somehow links in with my next question. So Richard says, Ger, if Omar Dembele came in, would it be worth sending the boy out on loan? My question with that as well, we have a lot of young lads in the squad that especially the likes of Gelhardt, who I just feel sorry for at this stage that young lad isn't playing football at this stage. You also have the likes of Charlie Crew, High Ceiling, your De Boyos, your Chambers. Is it really worth Leeds United? Like, these guys aren't getting any minutes. They're spectators sitting on the bench with a closer view. They're not getting any sort of minutes. Surely the club have to have like some sort of responsibility of welfare of progressing these players, especially like Gelhardt. Like, I think that situation with Gelhardt has just come bad. But you do see it now because Paddy Bamford has got this injury. This somehow now impacts Joe Gelhardt's future going forward, going out on loan or potentially going to Hull and pressing his career on. Surely the club has to be responsible for the young players like that and go, no, look, you've done what you can for us. We've held you back. You haven't been playing. Do you feel like that there's a lot of the young lads in the squad that should be allowed to go on loan?
Well, I don't think anyone can be held to ransom for Paddy Bamford's fitness, because when is Paddy Bamford not injured? Yeah. So, I mean, Gelhardt's future can't hinge on that. I heard Joe Wayman describing them today as being held hostage, and I have to agree with it because it's like he's not playing football. He's not playing with 21s. He's sitting on the bench. He's not even on the bench half the time. He only got on the bench for the last game. Hadn't played since Bristol City, so hadn't been in the matchday squad since November. And what's the point? Like, what is the point if you're not just stockpiling a player there? Like, if he's not going to play, let him go out on loan. The same last year with Charlie Creswell, he was just sitting on the bench, not playing. And like you said, when he starts getting questioned on them, he seems to just go, well, now you're definitely not playing because I've been asked questions about you. So there's no way you're in the park. Yeah, double down now and completely pushed it down the pecking order. Like, I still don't understand why they sold Creswell. He's on a 5-year contract. Loan him out for 2 years and see if he improves.
Because we gave him the number 5 short. Do you remember at the start of that season? He got the number 5 short. We were like 5-year contract. Like Charlie Creswell, obviously his dad playing here was like, came through the academy. His brother's here as well. So it was like the fairy tale story that this is another one coming through the Great Leeds Academy. But how he was treated on, look, I obviously know if I right or wrong, whether you agree with it, is that Richard obviously posted that on social media again, whether you agree with it or not. But then it was like Farke then somehow start punishing. Well, then you're definitely not playing now. And it's like there's a side of, because you look at the Willie Nanto situation, we're all turning around and going, yeah, fair play to you, that's what you should do. Let him rot in the 21s or let him not play football because he's trying to force him out. But then you look at the Cresswell situation, you're like, oh, no, that's not on. But I feel like he done the same for both, that he was doubling down on both of them, that my decision is my decision. And if I'm told what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. And that's what it feels like in this situation, especially with the young players.
I think there was some subtle differences in the different situations. I think Willie did what he did and then realised that wasn't a good idea, and then was the best boy in school for the next 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it was. Just get back in the good graces. I think Charlie might have pushed the envelope a little bit with demanding game time. I think he described himself as being better than the 2 centre backs that we'd had, which is a bold position.
Not a way to go about it. Yeah.
But even at that, I just thought managers come and go. They usually stay at clubs maybe 3 years if you're lucky, but they're usually 1 to 2 seasons you'll have a manager for now. You've signed this kid on a 5-year contract, so you've given yourself plenty of time in his development. If it's not working right now and he's not playing, why not loan him out for a bit? Give him 2 seasons out on loan. I'm not saying that Charlie Creswell would have been a fantastic centre-back and may have made it and been the great story that people thought it would be. He may not be. He may have been a very average centre-back. But the point being that you had time to explore that and send him out on loan, let him play first-team football for a couple of seasons, become a regular, let him go to France and play in Toulouse. You want to go there? Cool. Go on loan for the year. And we'll have a look at you. Actually, stay next year again. We'll have a good look at you, let you develop, let you play. And then you might be bringing a player back who's coming straight into your first team as a first choice centre-back, having a couple of good years behind him. But the decision to sell him then for 5 million is basically saying, we don't think you're going to progress from this level. So if he does, they've got it wrong.
Which is a big
question mark on how they handled the Lewis Bates situation as well. He's now the captain of Stockport and having a banger of a season, and been a player of the month, a couple of months as well. So it doesn't know. But Max Dean was another example. Jesse didn't rate Max Dean, so off Max Dean went, and until he did his ACL a couple of weeks ago, he was having an absolute phenomenal season.
Yeah, unfortunate that was not.
Sometimes we can jump too soon with the young players, and I think we've got a chance to give ourselves time. The issue with the current bench for me is the ones that are around the match day squad aren't playing with the under 21s because they're in the match day squad, with the exception of Sam Chambers. Sam Chambers is playing for under 21s or under 18s when he's not with the first team squad. But Charlie Crew's not. And that's the same as Creswell last year, where he's just sitting on the bench not playing. Joffrey's not playing football. So outside of training matches, which I can tell you for a fact are not the same intensity of a real
No,
game, are
definitely
not
not.
the same
No.
stakes as a real game.
Mm.
And if you're just playing training matches, you're not sharp enough to play first team football, and it's going to take you weeks of games before you're up to that speed. So I would look at the likes of DeBoyo. If you bring in cover, why not let him go out on loan if you think he can step up? He's going to need games. Charlie Crew, are we just keeping him on the bench because we need to fulfill a criteria? Can we not let him go play football? Or let him go back down to 21s and continue his development
And
there
actually
because he's
play,
only
yeah.
19? He's plenty of time to play, but they need to be playing football. You know, and I think at the moment, if the squad isn't full, and I get that Farke likes a small squad, same as Bielsa, and likes to fill it with the younger players. But if you're not playing them, and Bielsa did play the younger players, if you're not playing them, they're not developing. They're just going stagnant there, and they're losing important years. And I think the club should be looking at these as longer term investments and get them out on loan. Let's see if they can play. If they can't, let's cut ties and be done with it quickly. Let's not muck around here. But I think at the moment they're just taking up a seat on the bench because they don't play.
Yeah, it doesn't seem fair. Like what you said, and you probably would have had it as well, Ger, where you play for managers and you perform really well under manager, and probably at the same club another manager comes in and you don't perform as well. And it's like other players flourish under different managers. And I think I agree exactly what you said with the Charlie Cress one, because it still baffles me that we do give him a 5-year contract. He goes out the door probably on the Farke's watch, and we see it so many times. We see Matthias Click as well go out on loan, not a great loan, comes back on that Bielsa, and we turn out, well, Click's definitely first because of that mistake he made at Leicester, that slip, and he's not good here, and you look how he flows. So it's different managers can bring out the best in different players, and this is where it does come out that Daniel Farke, you can talk about his tactics, his management, his formation, wherever it may be, but you do have to look at the personal development side as well, how he looks after young players. We did see a little bit with Archie Gray last season, but I just feel like at times, especially the Gelhardt situation as well, that he doesn't fully have the full want for the young players to kind of come through, and it has to be something for the club where the club turn around and go, well, look at the minutes he's playing, Daniel, let's let him go, let's push him on, and maybe even try and replace, because I think someone mentioned it further on there in the chat, we do have loan spots to fill, so let's try and get someone in then and, bolster the squad that way. So yeah, it's something that I would like to see.
I think Farke is possibly looking at it, and we have to probably look at it from his perspective as well, and he's been told get promoted. So the way he's looking at everything is, I don't have time to be sentimental or to think about longer term futures for you guys. We need to get promoted. I'm doing what I have to do right now to get us promoted. And again, depending on the result of that, you can decide to argue or not with the logic of it. But if Leeds go up, he was right, because ultimately that's what proves you're right. So I think there's that perspective of things, and that's possibly how he's looking at it. But the bigger point is, and one of the issues I had last year was, Farke didn't trust his bench. And I agreed that with that bench, I wouldn't have trusted a lot of players on that bench either. But you've got 7 slots on that bench. If you only have 4 on that bench that you're realistically going to use during a game, then you've lost options. Why is that bench not full of people that are competing for positions to get on the park? That 7 should be a headache for him. He should be turning around going,
which one?
In here now. But at the moment he turns around, if Leeds are drawing or losing, he's looking around going, it's
Ramazani, your Josephs,
Joseph Ramazani, Nanto, on his come, and then if we're winning the game, it's Gilavogi, Vober, and Boylan, or whoever. But they're the same kind of changes.
And it's the same with Smith as well, Ger. That we know he's not playing, and we don't know what's gonna. It looks like there's a falling out there, but obviously nothing has came out. But you look at him, and he's taken up a spot on the bench. So if he's not even in your mind to give him 5 or 10 minutes when both of our fullbacks have gone off injured, that you can't even put him on when the game, I think it was Plymouth, when we were beating Plymouth 3-0, when we seen Crew and Chambers coming on. Smith stayed on the bench with Boyer, who was after playing the 90 minutes before that, if I'm right, I'll have to check it, and played that 90 minutes that match. And I'm kind of saying, this is it, Smith can come on here, Smith, and he didn't do it. So if he's not even in your mind to put him on, like what you say, for the 5 or 10 minutes, why is he on the bench? Why fill a spot on that bench?
Come here, Schmidt. From what we've seen of Schmidt with St. Gallen and the reports and what he did in Europe, he seems like a very good fullback. And he was playing right back for them, not left back, but he seems like a very good option to have there. But if Daniel Farke sees more of him than we do. So if Farke is looking at him and training and thinking he's not doing enough, he's not got his head around what I want him to do, maybe the defensive work isn't there, maybe the overall work right there. Yeah. But then there's a big decision. Like, if he's wrong, if he's not good enough, fine. No problem. I get it. If he's not coming on the park because he's not good enough, great. Why is he there? Take him off the bench, get him out of the squad, and move him on. Or loan him back out to St. Gallen. Do whatever you have to do. But if he's not good enough, then he shouldn't be there. You're halfway through a season and he's barely kicked the ball. And we've had lots of problems in our fullbacks areas. And if I'm a player and I'm looking at what's happened with Schmidt, in my head, I'm off. Because what's the point? Like, what's the point? I've been here for months. Yes, I had a hernia problem. Yes, I had a bit of fitness issues. But I've seen a guy that's been out for 4 months with a knee injury walk back into the team ahead of me. Well, I'm
he was building his minutes though, Ger, wasn't he? He was coming on, you know, a couple of minutes Cardiff away. He was getting bit part minutes, and you hear the retro building his minutes, and he looked all right. And we can't make an assumption of him. I think the only thing, unless you were a fan of St. Gallen and you watch St. Gallen, you can't really comment on his technical ability. But what we have seen of him, he hasn't came on and been detrimental where you turn around and go, no, he doesn't deserve a shot he doesn't deserve a shot, you know, 5-10 minutes even. So that's where I think my criticism as well comes from Farke as well, that if you're not even going to be willing to throw him off for 5 or 10 minutes when you see a Sam Boyer struggling, why is he taking a spot on the bench? Why not give one of the younger lads a go? Give them a spot on the bench, because if you're Smith and you're, you know, getting changed, you're going out, you're warming up, you're doing X, Y, and Z, and then you're sitting on the bench freezing your arse off, and then you go in, you celebrate your win, and you do it again and again and again. That has to be like ruining his confidence and not progressing again as a player.
It's not even from a perspective of us wanting this player to play. Like, there's times where it's like, give the new guy a game. You know, we all want to see the new guy, but it's not even from that perspective. The way I look at it is, this Leeds team and this Leeds squad needs to be as competitive as possible, or as dominant as it can possibly be. If you've got players on your bench who are not part of your consideration for your lineup, even coming on or starting, then the board and the recruitment team need to move them on and bring you in players that are going to compete for those places. Because maybe one of Ilan Mellier's biggest issues over the last couple of years has been he's had zero competition for his jersey. None. Yep. Everyone's been brought in to just supplement the spot. That's all. So maybe not having that competition has put him backwards. But if Farke looks at these players and if they're not competing for these places, then the players that are on the park can get complacent. I'm going to play anyway, you know? Yeah. And Ethan Ampadu is probably one of those players, but he hasn't got the mentality to be complacent. But it can seep in.
It can swing, yeah.
If they're not good enough, if they're not adding value, and if they don't benefit the manager, then move them out and bring the ones in that can. Because again, we keep being told the money is there and there's no PSR issue. So let's just do it then. Why mess around and why wait till the last night of the window to start doing stuff?
Yeah, because then it feels like it's just scraps then left, isn't it? That everyone else is making moves, they're showing the players that they want, and then we're kind of left, well, what's left? Like what you said, the last week or so of the window, and it always feels like then we're getting scraps. But then you do look at them, we're signing the likes of El Tanaka as well. So I do have some sort of confidence in the 49ers since they have taken full control. They have done it. Now I think this summer just about done it after a horrific window, seeing all of our players going, we just about done it. So until proven otherwise, until the window closes, I'm not like, because Dylan was asking me as well, what do you think the 49ers do? I don't think they're going to put the hand in the pockets. I was like, I genuinely don't know. But what they've shown us, they have done it. So we'll reserve judgment till after January window. But what I will say is, we have to look at last season, and I think you agree, Ger. January was massive. Like I remember, I don't know, did you go to Camden for the playoff final?
I did.
And I walked out, obviously in bits like every other Leeds fan. And the first, whatever about the game and who started and tactics and X, Y, and Z, I walked out of there and the only thing I could think back was January. January done us big time. Because you look, we bring in Connor Roberts and he was in here and there and he obviously gets injured. But you look at everyone else around us, like then the Shrewd sign, and you see Ipswich, they get the big man, the man that they need, Kiefer Moore. You see Southampton doing David Brooks. They're all doing bits. And you just look back to that January and you say, we should have just done more. We should have just done the obvious. Not trying to save a few quid, don't rest on laurels. It's like, we thought we were already there before we got there, and that's the one thing I don't want from Leeds this season. And we've seen Aronson playing really well, and I've been banging on about 10, and like that, I really like Aronson. But I think in away games, he goes missing an awful lot, and like that, he does get flogged, especially that third game in the 6 or 7 days. You see, he does be jaded, and of course, just an option. Yeah. And there's this rhetoric, well, wingers can't play in the 10, but then against Derby, then you put Aronson out on the wing. So it didn't really make sense to me, but that is something that I do want to see. I do want to see us go, do a 10 and not rest out. I don't want to look back in May again. I don't want to be walking out of Camden after another playoff final and go, we done it again. Like, I just want us to just do the obvious and just get out of this league. And like I said, there's no PSR repercussions. Well, then go do it. Go do it then.
And
don't leave it.
You're so close to being in the Premier League, and if that's the goal and if everything is sitting on that, then when you've gone past the Christmas checks, you can go and blow it out of the water now if you want to, and they can go, well, you broke PSRs, like, we are not coming back here. So you can keep the charge and just get out of it. I think sometimes we can try and be a little bit too clever for our own good, and it's bitten us in the past. And Angus Kinnear will be should be very aware of these things, and he should be the voice in the room saying maybe we could probably get 1 or 2 just to be sure, because he famously said that we had Adam Forshaw coming back, and that was our central midfield issue sorted, and we had 2 international number 9s of Pat Bamford and Rodrigo, who both got injured and stopped getting called up by their national sides immediately, nearly, and we left ourselves short, and ultimately we ended up getting relegated. Last season, funnily enough, I thought we didn't need a lot last summer. I thought Conor Roberts coming in was a good signing. I would have liked him earlier. I thought he did make an impact, but he was injured, and that was a problem. But then you look at the March international break and the body, and we, as we always do, are the best little kids in the class, and we sent all of our players off to play all around the world in games that some of them didn't need to play in, and they all came back injured. And then the arse fell out of the season because George had a hernia operation because he was flogged all season. He gets a hernia operation during that gap. Is not the same player when we come back, and the players look knackered for the remainder of the season. They just ran out of steam completely. So all of that has got to be in the back of their head. And if they think we're okay, we're not, because we can already see where the gap is. If Joe Rodon gets a red card, which is possible,
which is very close, Ger, because he went from, I think it was the Sunderland when he picked up the 4th yellow, and he went, if I'm right, 9 or 10 games. And I kept saying it. It's one waiting to happen. It's one waiting to happen, and it is very close. I know we're not in that situation at the minute, but like that, a suspension, a red card, God forbid, an injury, and we know what Joe Rodon is like. He's very physical. He goes in for tackles, headers. It only takes him to get one bad cut to be out for 2 or 3 weeks with a bad injury or whatever. And again,
you can't be telling Joe Rodon not to tackle people. You can't be telling him to turn back his game, because that's why he is the player. That is his game. Yeah. So you take that out of him, you ruin him as a player. So you can't do that. But it's just smart work, like, to have a backup option in there. The difficulty will be getting the level of player that you need to get to be, and who's willing to sit there. Spence is a different one. Spence clearly rubbed somebody up the wrong way, but Spence made comments as well, by the way, last year about being late for training was only an issue if you weren't in the starting 11, which basically said there were players in the starting 11 who were being late and were getting away with it because they weren't starting 11. He made a comment afterwards, so he wasn't happy with what was going on behind the scenes at Leeds either. So, look, slightly different scenario, but right now we should have round pegs for round holes in pretty much every position, bar centre back, right side, and a backup number 10.
Yeah,
just go and get those 2 done, and then if the worst happens, if Aronson does pick up a knock, you've got an option, because you can say, oh, we just push Rothwell into the 10, fine. Tanaka gets injured. Ampadu has a reoccurrence of a knee injury. Now what do you do? Charlie Crew? Is that the option that comes in there now?
Yeah.
Or, so one bad injury at the wrong place, and then a knock-on effect of other players being injured because of it could just derail the entire season. So just
everything,
don't try and be too smart. Don't try and be too clever. I understand they're probably trying to keep their hand in their pocket a little bit, knowing if we go up, there's a very big summer needed. And I think they will flex when they get up next year. But you have to get there,
That's
and
it.
If you don't, if you're gambling, a holding pattern on getting you up, you might regret it. And I think if we don't do anything in this window, if we don't fill the 2 spots, I think we might regret it come the end of the season. I hope not, but I think it'll be lingering in the back of everyone's mind. And I'm just watching the March international break with both eyes, because I think that's potentially where the issues begin.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, that March one. I didn't even think about the March. It was more the January window. But I remember after that March international break when a lot of our players went out, and even Nanto was performing well. And I remember he came back after that March international. He was poor. Don't think he should have started at Wembley. I think if Dan James had been, all the Welsh lads, they went out. Dan James missing the penalty. The same thing happened to them as well. And DJ was obviously brilliant in that playoff semi-final. I thought he should have started ahead of Nanto. But again, look, it's all in the past. Last couple of years before we let you go. It's obviously been a season again of ups and downs. We've obviously had players come in, the likes of our Ramazanis, our Tanakas. Who do you feel so far this season has been the best performer, or who did you think has performed above expectation? What you thought?
I think probably just the 2 standouts are Tanaka and Dan James. I just think Dan's excellent. I mean, yes, he's probably a fault for the goal against Blackburn, but one blip in what's been a really, really effective season for him again. I think he's key to everything that we do from an attacking perspective. Tanaka's numbers speak for himself. The most amount of forward passes of any player in the division, 300 and something. Most amount of interceptions and blocks of any player in the lead squad. So he's doing the attacking and the defending very well.
He can score.
And he can score. Let him hit the ball. He can hit a ball. So yeah, I think those 2 have been brilliant. above expectations. I think they're all pretty much where they were expected. I think we're still waiting on Willie Nanto to catch fire this season. I think we've
that
started
was
the
my next
season
one, the
really well,
underperformer.
but he's kind of just plateaued a little bit. I think how Leeds play can affect him sometimes. The best to get the best out of the likes of Solomon, Nanto, James, and Ramazani, I think you need to put the ball in front of them. So when Leeds play quickly and put the ball into the channels for them to run into it, that's when we're at our best. Nanto has a habit of getting the ball and turning back on himself and running back into danger.
Having to beat the man again, and
go and beat the man. That's a confidence thing, I think, as well. Rather than go one-on-one with this guy, I'll come inside and try and do something. I think Willie just needs to back himself a little bit more. I keep saying I'd love to see him have a crack at number 10 because he's good.
He can go off both feet as well, can't he? He can shoot off both feet and everything.
Yeah, pure power. So, and we bought him as a striker, and we've never played him there. He was brought in as a striker. So why not put him
wasn't ready.
Central?
He wasn't ready for the Premier League.
Wasn't ready, but like 3 years later, he's still not playing up front. So yeah, they're the ones. Joe Rothwell for me is probably above expectation because I think a lot of people just saw him coming in and sit on the bench. I said in their predictions at the start of the season, I think he'd have a very important year for us. And I think from a tempo and a game-changing tempo perspective, he's very important to what we do and how we've been at our best. How he's been very important to us. So yeah, everybody else I think is doing what they should be. And Brendan Aronson's probably performing above expectations as well because we expect him to come around and roll over, and he's rolled over a little bit, but not as much as he used to. And he's got 7 goals now, 3 assists, so not a bad return so far for him.
Yeah, I'm happy with Aronson as well, and it's like that's more so I just don't want to see him get flogged. I don't want to look at him Georgie-esque when we're coming towards the end of the season. Them important games, the last 10 games to go, and he just hasn't got it in the tank. That's where I feel like if we go in January, because it feels like everywhere else we kind of have cover. It's just that number 10 position. I don't feel like we've fully sorted out. So that's something that I would like to see. Jerry, look, I think that's it. Anything else you'd like to add or say?
No, just thanks for having me on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for coming on. Enjoyed that chat.
Hopefully relaxing weekend to enjoy against Harrogate, and hopefully we'll see get a bogey and
unless there's another cup upset, we get knocked out by League 2 Harrogate.
If Schmidt doesn't start in that game, there's questions.
There's serious question to ask here, isn't there? He surely has to start, Smith.
I think he
has to. Probably won't even be in the squad. I was thinking I was going to start him against Sheffield Wednesday, so I didn't decide to start him against Harrogate.
I thought he'd start him against Plymouth the second game. The second game against Derby, I thought he'd start him in that game, but he didn't.
I said the same thing as well. I thought because Boyram was playing so much. Did Boyram have 5 or 6 games in a row? And I was like, this is Smith's time is definitely coming. And he did. Then he didn't. But that's just Daniel Farke. He's very unpredictable. And every week myself and Dylan do a match build up and we try and predict the lineup, especially that Joseph Pirro position. And I'll turn around and go, I think he's going to go Pirro this week. And then he'll go Joseph. And then the following week, I think he's going to go Pirro again. And then he'll swap it.
It's never the obvious one, Darren, because when he plays against sides that are likely to play a low block, that's the obvious one for Pirro because it's going to be tight and congested in the box and he can put a goal out of nowhere. And when teams play a little bit more open, it's good for Joseph because he'll press. And then Farke will do the opposite. You're like, I don't know what you're picking anymore. I can't predict your team. And
do you think that last question before we go, because I was about to wrap it up, do you think that's what the issue is, that he actually genuinely doesn't, because we don't know the best starting 11, we haven't seen it consistently. Do you think is that where he's at the minute as well, that he genuinely doesn't know his best starting 11 because of what Tanaka and Rothwell I think brought as well, have probably thrown the spanner in the works from as well. He obviously hung his hat on Joseph. He had a little dip as well, Pirro's performance. So there has been, I know that happens of course, but do you think it's thrown him a little bit, the performances that you didn't expect?
I think he wanted the midfield too of Gruev and Ampadu. I think he wanted a defensive double pivot because he's of the opinion the best defense in the league gets promoted. So keep your eye on Burnley. I think the other two have been a surprise to him. They're a good surprise. But I think he was starting to find his best 11. And I think just the amount of games we had over Christmas possibly gave him a wobble on that as well. Throwing the game wins against Blackburn. Because I think James and Solomon are our best 2 wide options. I think Pirro's probably our best option in 9, Aronson in 10. I personally prefer Tanaka and Rothwell at home, but I would go Tanaka and Ampadu away from home, and everybody else can pick themselves. So I think he's very close to having the best side. It's just, can Ramazani get into that? And is Ramazani, when he's in full, fettle and going at teams, can he dislodge one of those two? Willie's got a bit of work to do, and I think Joseph's got a little bit of work to do. But I think for his first breakthrough season, I think Joseph's doing
not bad,
fine for a young player coming in. Yeah,
it's just typical is that we bigged them up. Do you remember the start of the season? Everyone's gone, Joe's going to be top goal scorer. He's going to get 15, 20 goals this season. It's just like, what are you basing this off? Where does this come from? It's just us as Leeds fans bigging up the player.
Don't we? It's the same as now. I put it out today. They're going to sign this goalkeeper Cook from Perth Glory. He's 16
Seeing that,
and he's
yeah.
going into the academy. And I put the tweet out, and in the bottom of the tweet, I said, is not to be considered for the first team. The amount of people that straight away and put him straight in is like, you've never even seen this kid play football and you want him to start a game. So we love a shiny new toy, Darren, but I think just calm heads, be smart. I think Farke just do the obvious thing for the remainder of the season, do the obvious thing in January, and we'll be fine. The team is good enough to get promoted.
Don't be too smart. Be smart, but don't be too smart.
Don't be too clever. Yeah.
I agree. Look, lads, we leave it there. Ger, again, thanks very much for popping on. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Myself and Dylan will be back on what day? Friday for the match build up against Harrogate, where we'll do a bit of digging for that one. That will be fun, digging into it, League 2 Harrogate side. So pop in for that. Ger, what's happening over on The View?
We have the news as normal every day during the week. We spoke to James Marshman in Team Talk last night to get his take on the January window as well. I have my preview for the game will be tomorrow night with Stats Live, and then just news for the rest of the week. The warm-up will go out on Saturday morning, and everything else pretty much as is.
Lovely. Happy days. Lads, again, before you leave the video, don't forget to smash a like on the video and hit subscribe to OnlyLeedsBros, and you have to head across the Ger and hit subscribe over there as well. Again, thanks very much for popping in, and we'll chat to you all again soon. Have a good week.